Hey, everybody. On today's show, we have an interview with Jeff Geoghagan. Who is Jeff? He is a 30-year veteran of law enforcement in the great Northwest of the United States, SWAT instructor, has teaches classes on how to protect yourself and how to react during an active shooting situation, which will certainly happen again in our nation. So stay
Yes.
tuned for that. He's an expert on this. You don't want to miss that. That plus a couple other things we're going to talk about on what, Jim?
Two guys.
Yes.
One go.
Say no more.
Welcome to the Two Guys, One Coup podcast with Dale and Jim, where the truth matters and progressives' feelings don't. We bring you the facts from the perspective of two average, everyday guys who will never apologize for being America first, for adhering to our great Constitution, and for saluting the flag that our brothers and sisters have fought and died for. And now, here's Dale and Jim.
Well, you can like, follow, and share on Rumble.
Where? On Rumble, Jim. Like, follow, and share on Rumble.
See?
Thank you for bringing that
I
up.
did it right.
You're doing good. You're like I don't even know what's happening,
Hey,
but you've had your A
after
game, butter.
40 times, man, I'm going to get it right after that.
I know. It doesn't take you long. Listen, stay tuned for this interview. Jeff Geoghagan is his name, law enforcement officer. If I read you his resume, Jim, it would take up the entire show.
Yep.
This guy has done it all. And what a great individual. I mean, absolutely great individual. And you get to hear his stories and get to hear his opinions on active shooting and how you should react and what should happen. It all makes sense. There's so much stuff he talks about in this interview that I never thought about.
It's interesting because we talk about some of these things that we talk about, it's going to happen again. We wish it wouldn't, right?
Yeah, we wish it wouldn't.
We all wish we could sit around and sing Kumbaya and do all that stuff and, not have that fake stuff like the headquarters of Hamas down underneath the hospital where it evidently shows
debunked.
There was.
Debunked. Nope.
But anyway, I digress. So we, you talk about these different situations. None of us expect to be in, right?
Yep.
I mean, you go to a store, you go to a restaurant, you think, okay, you don't expect that, right? And then, but if it happens, it's good to know what you have to do.
Exactly.
And
Nobody
he
expects
explains
it, but
well. Yeah. We'll get into it.
Yeah, but so here's the crazy part. I don't know what it was, but I saw a clip of somebody going through a list of, has there been a shooting here? Okay, that was the title of it. And he looks up just a company like some that have just passed. So we look Build-A-Bear. Everybody knows what Build-A-Bear is. Well, yep, there was a shooting at a Build-A-Bear. And he looks up, Starbucks. Yes, shooting at Starbucks. You name the store, you name the place. There has been a shooting. Basically, he's like, if you live in America, you will be shot. So,
I mean,
but the odds are, you could find yourself in this situation. Holidays are coming up. Boy, they love to target those malls and those stores and those, you name it. It's just what the sick, mentally disturbed people do. And so to know how to react, and again, you could know everything until you're trained and until you realize and you're in that situation. Nobody's ever going to really know, except for Jeff. He knows. He knows what to do, and he spent a lifetime doing it. That's why. Yeah. So,
and again, when we can all think we know, right? We all think that if everybody carries, that's that's going to be great. Nobody's going to do anything, but that isn't always the case.
It's not always the case, and he'll explain why that too.
Yeah, because the good Samaritans don't always. They have good intentions, but they can't do what is required, and they get dead or injured, severely
or you name it. So
so we'll get more into that as we go.
Oh, it's incredible! It's incredible. Go ahead.
Can I bring up real quick? You brought up stores, and I just thought of this. It was a story I saw on the Daily Wire, and I gotta that Washington D.C. stores are coming up with a great way to stop robbery, to stop people coming in and stealing stuff. Right?
Okay.
So they actually. This is really cool. They take pictures, and they've got, instead of when you go up to the place where they have toilet paper, there's pictures. Toilet paper is not there anymore.
Okay.
So if you want it, you have to go up to the counter.
What?
And then they'll go and get it for you. But still, you could have armed robberies go in and take them, but it's but yeah, you know how they steal it and dash and stuff. That you can't do that anymore because now because I actually saw one at CVS, because that's what it is. It's a CVS store. Toothpaste is locked. You can't, and toothbrushes you can't. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to combat this, and they're doing it. But folks, when you go in there and you look at a place where it says pictures of what you want to buy, remember there's a reason for it.
Yeah, that's
all right. They don't just do it just because they're making fun because they don't have the product anymore. So they're ha ha ha. Look, that's not what they're doing. It's not COVID.
Yeah,
right. It's not COVID. Where everybody
goes toilet paper shortage all of a sudden.
Goes and buys toilet paper.
Crazy.
This is because people steal it. And you brought up the holidays and thefts and everything, and it just
that's crazy. You know, I did see so. You know, I think where I first saw all that locked up stuff was, I think, in a drugstore, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
And it was, I think they had like the razors like locked up, like the. I'm like, well, because they're made out of metal, because they could resell it for more. I don't know what, but they were having a big problem with robberies of those, and I'm like, what the hell? And then at one point, I saw like Head and Shoulders like locked up, like Well, they steal it and then they sell it for $2. So you sell it for cheaper than you're buying it at the store, and then they're making so. I mean, it's crazy what's going on out there, but yeah, that's nuts to me. Jim, let's talk a little bit about a couple things.
Yes,
let's talk about the fact that just today, the Michigan courts have denied the Democrats' attempts to remove President Trump from the ballot for 2024, and they have upheld the 14th Amendment as it should be. Yeah. So he will remain on the ballot in that state. Of course, I don't know if Colorado's made the decision yet, but they're doing it everywhere. You know,
Georgia hasn't been. I mean, the thing is, Georgia has taken so long that it may go past when it's time.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, yeah,
that's what I'm saying. So,
which a lot of these might be doing that.
Yeah, they might be doing that. You know,
there's the ballot that way.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes that we know is shady, and we know what's going on. For instance, let's talk about this real quick. Then the potential to impeach Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas. There was a vote across the board in the House of Representatives, and a 209 to 201 vote to not impeach this absolute detriment to our nation and traitor.
Yeah, if you do that math, folks, there were a number of people that did not vote.
There's people who did not vote. There's people who, and here's what they're saying. The ones that voted, the 8 Republicans there was, and they're saying that, well, it goes back to the committee. You know, what he has done is not high crimes and misdemeanors. Are you kidding me? If there's ever been such high crimes and misdemeanors perpetrated on this nation, it is by Robert Mayorkas. Now, I don't want to go into Robert Mayorkas as much because next week, folks, we have an interview with a gentleman.
A big fan.
We'll tell you all about him, huh?
Big fan of Mayorkas.
Yeah,
he's a big fan.
Very knowledgeable on who Robert Mayorkas is and what he has done to get where he's at and what he is doing to this nation. It's all about immigration. We'll tell you all about that. That'll be next Tuesday when that interview airs. But this is crazy to me. What is the point of having control of either side of the Congress if you're not going to do your damn jobs, Republicans?
When you always sit there and say reach across.
Yeah.
Okay. Democrats, for whatever reason, they always stick together.
Yeah.
Always stick together. Don't know why. Don't know if it's threats. Don't know. It's just, but the Republicans, we can't get of our own way. We can't. And it's because, well, we don't want to be like them. We don't want to do that. Well, that's why they do this.
Yeah.
Because they know we're going to have cowards that are going to, we're going to take the high road. We're not going to get into these little piss ant things. Well, until we start taking the low road,
Yeah, we're going to keep
always
getting
going to
get our
asses kicked.
Yeah, we are always going to do it.
We let these media, it's like we always talk about it. Vivek, whether you like the guy or not.
Yep.
Okay, and I get it. He's
I
sometimes immature.
thought he had a hell of a good debate.
Yes, he did, and much better because they weren't necessarily killing each other. Right? We actually got into that.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point of the matter is he goes on all of these different networks to let other people hear him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether or not they agree with him or not, it's going to be, yes, they're going to be against him. They're not going to like him because he's conservative, and that's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But we stay away from these shows.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Go on him. Go on these shows. Talk to him. Let the people hear who you are, what you're doing. He goes on
everywhere, except
because,
2 Guys, 1 Coup. I think he's a little afraid to come out.
Yeah, I think so. Because we're very intelligent.
That's true. He probably knows he can't keep up with us. So, but let's be honest.
It just kind of drives me nuts because we Republicans do not stick together when we have to stick together. And
it's because of who's doing it. It's like when Matt Gaetz was the removal of the speaker. Okay, well, Matt Gaetz is a Trump guy, right? So nope, can't go with him. Mm-hmm. Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to impeach Mayorkas, brings up articles of impeachment on a vote. Nope, can't go with her. She likes Trump. She's like, hey, this is the most insane thing I've ever heard of. Mayorkas is by far. He might as well be a spy. Giving secrets to our enemies. I mean, he is literally the worst human being in this,
on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Something's going on.
Something's going on, man.
None of this makes
Something's
any sense.
going on.
Just nothing makes. We can all speculate. You and I.
Yeah.
You and I speculate for a couple things. One, it's votes, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of states are now allowing these illegals to vote,
mm-hmm.
and because they realize now they're losing the black vote. There was a report that came out. By the way, there was a report that came out that black voters are deciding just to stay home and not to vote because they
that's a vote for a Democrat if you do that.
But here's what bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they know the Democrats don't side with them. But because of what the Democrats told them about Republicans, they believe the Republicans don't side with them either. And just take a look. You're not going to like everything, okay? Because you're not going to like everything about the Republican Party, just like you don't like everything about the Democrat Party. But the Republican Party is going to stand behind you if you're willing to work. Doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
If you're willing to work, love this country like no other, and take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Self-responsibility.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Come on, just those little basic things. There's others, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are others.
Yeah, but there's those basic 3 things is really all you need to do, And so, okay, we're going to get to that interview. This, though, first, reason number 672, I think, to not allow Nikki Haley to be president of the United States. She wants to raise the age of retirement due to longer life expectancies.
Yeah.
Screw off, Nikki. I don't do it. We aren't that far away. So,
20 years ago, it's like, okay, no problem.
Don't care.
Yeah,
what are you talking
close.
About? Yeah, I'm not that far away. I don't need Nikki Haley butting in now. So,
but I will say this, Dale, she's not wrong.
What?
If things continue to go up, if prices of everything, do you?
Well, it's not like we can retire. That's not my point.
Right. That's the thing. It's what's the point? We can't retire at 65 anyway, so why not raise the retirement age up to 70 or whatever? I mean,
for the love of God!
But did you notice?
By the time I get there, we're not in this situation.
Did you notice that she and was it Chris Christie that both agree with that, but they won't give they won't give the age limit because their excuses about we got to wait and see what. They won't give the age limits because they don't want to sit there and say, guys, it's going to be 70.
Yeah.
It has to be 70.
God.
It has to be there. If you look at the cost now, they're not. Did you notice the whole debate? And I'm sorry, we're going on.
Yeah.
But the whole debate, they only talked about retirement, Medicare, Medicaid, all of that. They only talked about that.
Yeah.
No one brought up welfare.
Yeah, I know. Nobody.
Food stamps. And if they did, they just brought it up one little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the things the Democrats tell the elderly that get them to vote for them? The Republicans want to take away your Social Security. They want to take away your retirement. They want to take away Medicaid. They want to take away Medicare. We just showed them we want to.
Yeah.
It's like stop. It's
it's frustrating.
It just frustrates the heck out of me. But but nobody mentioned welfare or food stamps. Nobody mentioned any of that.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to be taken care of. We need people to work in this country and get their
Jim,
asses
do you know
off
how
that.
much needs to be taken care of to make this country what it was a simple 3 years ago, 4 years ago? I mean, so much has to take place, Anyways, that's another show. Let's get on with this interview. Jim, Jeff Geoghagan.
Wow.
Amazing individual. Yep. Brilliant, as a matter of fact. And really, 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 really experienced in this subject matter. Folks, stay tuned for that interview. When it's done, Jim and I will come back to close out this episode. Be right back. Well, folks, we want to welcome to the show today Jeff Geoghagan. Who is Jeff? I'm going to tell you briefly about Jeff, because we'd be here all hour just reading his resume. Current law enforcement, been in law enforcement his whole life, former military, police lieutenant, police sergeant. He's worked in the SWAT team. You might currently, Jeff, if I'm saying anything incorrect, you certainly please feel free to correct me.
No military background, military brat, but not a
military brat, but no military background. Sorry about that. You give that presence, so I apologize. But that's the lifelong police and law enforcement career that he has had, and it goes on and on and on. He is also teaches classes on active shooting, how to prepare for shooters, how to react towards it. We'll get into it. It's called A Life Saved, and we'll let him discuss that a little bit more. But Jeff, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on. We really want to talk to you a lot about your background, but also active shooting situations and how people should react and signs to look for and things like that. Tell me, if you can, briefly, what I missed about your background, because it is very extensive and very long, and what drove you towards law enforcement? I mean, it's a calling that's not for everybody. So
thank you both, and thank you very much for having me on. I have, as you described, I'm a 30-year veteran of local level law enforcement. And I've had a very, very fortunate career. I've been able to work in a lot of different parts of the department. Whether that was a patrol officer, a bicycle patrol officer, what we worked on a anti-crime team, which is basically a street level narcotics or street crimes enforcement team. I taught at the basic level academy. I also taught in service for a number of years, and then I spent a protracted time on a full-time tactical team, on a SWAT team. There are very, very few full-time SWAT teams in the United States. I think it's probably about 23. But learned a tremendous amount, promoted out of that, worked in a field supervisor capacity, was promoted from there, worked in a command level capacity. And just to kind of give you a background as to what got me into teaching and talking about active shooters, the team that I was on responded a number of different times to these events. And what we, in my experience, and at least one of my teammates found, is that there was some commonalities between each of these events. And the more number of these events and the more research I put into it, we began to realize that we had a body of knowledge that would benefit people from taking that, learning from it, and perhaps saving their own lives, saving the lives of others. And so we started to teach that. The department farmed me out to a lot of different places to teach that. And it just kind of got refined and refined and refined to the point where we realized that our reach was somewhat limited by just teaching through the department. And so we started teaching to corporate clients. The really great thing about what we do is that our corporate clients allow us to teach to those that perhaps might not be able to afford it to bring us in. So we've been able to teach a lot of different schools on the dime of the corporate clients. We just see it's our opportunity to give back. And so that's what we've been doing. We've been going out teaching response to active violence events. And to kind of get, one of the questions you asked is what got me into law enforcement in the first place. A sense of, I have always had issue with bullies. I have always had issue with people taking advantage of others. There are people that have power and those that don't. And there are those that should stand in the gap and those that have the skills and abilities to do so. I've been incredibly blessed to work with some of the most incredible men and women I have ever met throughout my travels, through both through the profession and through my private life. People that would have been immensely successful in the private life and then chose to come into law enforcement because they truly believed in the mission. Somebody that was a tenured professor at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, somebody that had been had his law degree and been a federal negotiator and decided, you know what, I want to be in law enforcement. And it's not just those folks. Probably one of the most capable, compassionate, incredible human beings I ever worked with was a long haul trucker for a long number of years. And this man could talk to anybody about anything and just create a relationship. And that's what got me into law enforcement. Not only that, but the caliber of people that I found when I joined the profession. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And you live on the West Coast. Could say where or not. I mean, it's up to you. But yeah, I mean,
I'm in Western Washington.
So. Well, yep, correct. So you all figured it out, Western Washington. But yeah, that's and so I'll get into. I was going to kind of start somewhere else, but just to get out there, the reaction from the community. So what we see, and I just a perception that we see on the East Coast or out on this side is, there's a perception of law enforcement, in big cities, and of course a big push, defund police movements, things like that. I have to believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the general population doesn't want any of that. That who you deal with on a day-to-day basis, or those you work with that deal with the general public on a day-to-day basis, they respect law enforcement. They need law enforcement. There's law and order and rules in a nation that keep it from turning into total chaos. The majority, do you get a lot of that? Like, damn cop or whatever kind of stuff? Or are they pretty much, we need you guys?
Yes and no. Let me say that I serve. So the community that I serve, and the agency I work for has multiple precincts. The precincts are divided into sectors. The area that I work has a lot of working class people. It's a very, very ethnically diverse, culturally diverse area. And again, going back to one of my reasons for coming to law enforcement, it really bothers me when I see let's say, for example, a carpenter who somebody breaks into his truck and steals all his tools.
Yeah.
Because those are the means by which they provide for their family.
Correct.
And those are the folks that we really, please don't get me wrong, we serve everybody equally, but those are the people that your heart goes out to.
Yeah.
They are not the ones that have heartache or issue with us. For the most part, it's been my experience that they feel that they're treated fair and they know that we are out there for them. A lot of times what we find is the criminal element really is predatory towards that population. A lot of times these folks are second generation Americans, and there are barriers to their full integration, including language and stuff, and that makes them a victim.
Yep.
And then there's a group who is, how do I put this, so incredibly critical, and so much of the criticism is based on their perceptions of our job and how we should do our job.
Okay.
Those folks I run into a little less frequently, but when I do run into them, they tend to be people that are very involved in local politics and are able to influence and sway decisions. And the unfortunate thing is that so many of the policies that have come out, we are the agency that I work for, it's just coming out of consent decree. And I will tell you, having been the use of force instructor, somebody that taught the officers how to use force and the constitutional limits of it, we're not using force excessively. And despite what anybody perhaps might argue. Yet there was enough energy and angst and drive to ultimately bring the Department of Justice into and effectively we've been under consent decree for 10 years. So there, to answer your original question, Dale, yes, there are some people that are very, very appreciative. And then on the other hand, there are some that really have an axe to grind and have this have this illegitimate perception that we are engaging in policing on the basis of race or socioeconomical class, and that has not been my experience. And as a commander, I would never allow that. If I can become aware, that's something we intervene immediately.
Yeah, I imagine that's 99% of law enforcement in general.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's typically, you get one bad apple, then they're all bad. I mean, it's that's how it's portrayed. But yeah, go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry.
So when we talk about the active shooter, because we had one recently, correct? And we're going to have more.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just inevitable. It's unfortunate.
Yes.
Those of us that think we're experts, and then those of you who are experts, there's a lot of misconceptions that we see, right? That where we have an active shooter situation, man, this person should be there doing this or this, whatever. We're all experts, but we're not, right? So what are common misconceptions that you have run into in your field with active shooting situations from your training?
So the absolute number one, and when I give this class time and time and time again, the number one thing I tell people is that law enforcement can be there fast enough. And I told you I was a full-time tactical team, and one of the things that, to the chagrin of my teammates, I would routinely say is that response to an act of mass violence is not a SWAT call; it's a patrol function. Because the first ones that are going to be there are going to be patrol officers, but even the patrol officers are behind the curve. We're talking about an event where the event in its duration is measured in seconds, but the law enforcement response and the response of the other first responders are measured in minutes. So when you talk about misconceptions, if I'm able to get that across to people, once that starts to sink in, then they realize I have to start making decisions for myself.
Yeah.
Correct.
When I start making decisions for myself, I embrace my own safety and my survivability goes up significantly. So when it comes to misperceptions or misconceptions, I would say absolutely that's number one. One of the other misperceptions, and it's based on, and it's something I could talk about here in a little greater length, is the concept and term of what is secure and what is not secure. A number of years ago, one of the things that we really pressed for is a coordinated response both between EMS and law enforcement, so that you're making entry into the site and providing immediate medical attention. Well, and it really kind of depends on whose numbers you're looking at. FBI has statistics, Secret Service, NYPD, a number of them have different ones. But effectively, about 98% of the acts of mass violence only involve one suspect. And however, the descriptions when they come in from the people that are provided for the witnesses describe the one suspect, but there are varying descriptions of that person. So ultimately what we get is reports of two or more. Well, if there's the possibility, despite the fact that I am encountering or I have the person in custody, because there's varying descriptions, there may be the possibility of a second.
Yeah.
The scene is not secure. And that means we cannot transition to the care teams that integrate both law enforcement and fire departments. So that what I'm telling you in terms of the misconception is that there is going to be immediate professional emergency medical care coming in immediately. That's not going to happen. It
has to secure the area, and it's got to be completely secure
to transition from a hot zone to a warm zone.
Yeah.
And it's the warm zone that the emergency medical folks will come in and join law enforcement and then provide medical attention and triage location.
Okay.
Again, talking about additional misconceptions, a lot of people want to, And I've actually had this happen in a couple of classes. They asked me the question, well, Jeff, who is more prone to be involved in, an active shooter event? And during my presentation, I put a number of pictures of a very diverse group of pictures, age, gender, socioeconomical class, profession, right, across the board. And I ask people, what are the commonalities? And it is not based on those characteristics. It is based on behavior. But again, people will have that misconception that there is a certain group, perhaps an ideology, that's a little bit more prone to that type of that, and that's truly not the case. So there's 3 for you.
Others,
but
we've seen in just I mean, you can last 4 or 5, what they would consider mass shooters. I mean, from all races to genders to transgenders to I mean, it's a mental health crisis, to say the least. And mental health doesn't really see race or color or gender or any of that. So it's rough. So we talk about that, with the mental health crisis, and we saw, I think, the most recent one in Maine, where he had spent a couple weeks maybe in a mental health facility, and maybe even longer than that, but was known. This individual was known to people.
Yes.
You can't now necessarily keep them locked up in a cage just because of that situation, but what are some more of the signs? I mean, there were clearly signs, and there typically are signs, and a lot of people may miss them or don't know what to look for. But what are some of the maybe lesser known signs that there might be an individual that's going to commit an attack like this?
So when it comes to signs, I think the first part of the conversation has to be that everybody has a baseline of behavior. And these signs are a good friend of mine who also teaches this, used the term, I'm sorry, not overlap, but I'll think of it here in a second. Okay. But anyway, it's a really accurate term to describe a radical deviation for that baseline of behavior. And so the behaviors that you actually see are a manifestation of somebody's internal stress. Really, the way that we like to look at it is that, I consider myself a success as a parent if I teach my children coping mechanisms for stress.
Yeah.
When somebody's coping mechanisms are overwhelmed, that internal disposition begins to manifest itself in external behaviors. And those external behaviors will be a radical deviation from their baseline behavior. And so a couple different examples that I would give you. And I have seen lists from a lot of different places, but one of the ones that I use just to make it simple is Dr. Park Dietz, who took his team looked at the events at Columbine and identified 12 different characteristics and behaviors. And then they applied this retroactively to a number of active violence events and found that 10 of those were readily available because just like you said, Dale, that whenever an event like this happens, these red flags pop up. And they'll go out and interview friends, family, neighbors, coworkers, and the person says, well, I saw him do this.
Yeah.
But, and so it's those behaviors. Some of the ones that I'll give an example for are threats, allusions to violence, inappropriate communications, intimidating weapons comments. Probably one of the ones that I hear the most common, particularly in the workplace, is repeatedly accusing others of one's own problems. When I'm teaching the class, I very emphatically say, giving them an example where I say, I've worked in this place for 10 years and I've done everything they asked for me. And that person got the promotion and I didn't. And, I deserved it. And one of these days they're going to get what's coming to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And you see the head nods in class. I mean, now I'm not saying that just because somebody displays these types of behaviors, and I'm not telling anybody that might be listening to go,
arrest him. Like that's the guy. There's the next one.
Tackle him yourself or something,
I mean, it's very, very few people that will ever act out in a violent manner. But when these behaviors are seen, first is the deviation for that baseline behavior, and they're seen clustered or over a period of time as a continual and gradual increase towards a path of violence. Personally, I believe that we have an obligation to intervene. We have an obligation to intervene as family members. We have an obligation to intervene as church family members. We have an obligation to intervene, at least in terms of colleagues in the profession, family, teachers, what have you, members of the community, to say, look, I saw this behavior. Let's do what we can to address this. Let's help this person remediate themselves. Because really what you're seeing is the external manifestation of these stressors. The term that my friend used to use is leakage. It is leakage. We have all those things that we keep inside, and part of our means of keeping that inside is managing those stressors.
Correct.
When it begins to leak out, our internal disposition leaks out. It leaks out in our online posts. It leaks out, for kids in their creative writing. Get the English teachers in here. Have them sit down and show you what these kids write. That shows what's living inside of them. So,
good
sorry,
advice.
I went on a little long, but hopefully
No, not long at all. No, that's all super important information. So
now, one of the important things we need to understand is how many times have people said it's never going to happen in our town? It's never going to happen here.
Every time.
So for those who say that and then have it happen, if you find yourself in a situation where there is an active shooter, whether it's right next to you or you're in a different part of the building or something, what should this individual do if you are caught in a situation where you hear a gunshot, and you hear people screaming? What should you do in that situation?
So the Department of Homeland Security put out a video, and perhaps you gentlemen have seen it. Some have not. It's called Run, Hide, Fight. And it has had tremendous reach. You haven't seen it. Okay. If you get a chance, Department of Homeland Security, Run, Hide, Fight. It is a response strategy. I will not, I'm not going to I don't want to be appear overly critical of them because their video has had mass reach.
Okay.
We have a little more refined approach, and I'll explain to you why. First, which is I use the ABCs. The ABCs are simply because it's a very easy moniker. It's sticky. It helps you remember. They say run. If I were to step in a crowded room and I scream, run! You're going to get a panicked response, right?
You are.
And in these circumstances, I've already told you, it's incredibly important to make decisions for yourself. We want to think, if you will, tactically. Well, we use the term avoid, as opposed to run. We use the term avoid because you need two things in order to avoid this threat. You need to know what it is, and you need to know where it is.
Right.
So, Jim, you talked about you're in your building and you hear a shot being fired, or you don't. Maybe you're on a different floor and there's a shot fired, and somebody's able to, get on the PA, or somebody's able to relay it. A lot of organizations actually have that emergency text that will go out. If you know where it is and you know what it is, now you can start making decisions for yourself. And I'll talk about the OODA loop and how it applies to this in orientation here in a second. So we really promote the idea of avoid. The next part of that is they promote the idea of hide. Hide is a passive effort. A hide takes the onus of responsibility off you and puts it on the person that is going around killing people.
Yes.
And a prime example is the events that occurred at Virginia Tech. The person, and by the way, I do want to point out, you notice that at no point in time will I use the names of the people that are involved.
Never. Nope. Agreed. We don't either.
Any attention.
Yep.
They are not deserving of it. Sorry, we're going to go on a tangent here because this is incredibly important.
No. Yes. It's important never to mention their names.
It seems to, in giving them attention through the media sources, it legitimizes their act. It lets people that are considering something like this say, look, this is a legitimate way for me to, act out my frustrations, vent my anger. So one of the questions I posed during my presentation is that I put pictures of people involved in acts of mass violence up there, and somebody always recognizes one or multiple ones.
Yeah.
Then I respond by saying, if I put the pictures of the people at Sandy Hook, the children at Sandy Hook,
you wouldn't recognize a one.
Not one.
Not one.
That's shouldn't our
terrible.
focus be on the victims and preventing
100%.
an event like this happening? So
100%,
going back to Virginia Tech for a second.
Yeah.
This individual went to the first classroom. The doors open, went inside, started shooting people. Okay. Kids slumped down. He effectively runs out of immediate available victims, goes to another classroom. The kids in that classroom had heard it coming. They barricade the door. He shoots through the door, but every person in that room lives. Okay? He goes back to the first classroom. The door's still open. Some of the kids have hidden underneath their desk, and he goes from desk to desk to desk, shooting people.
Yeah.
So my point here is that if you hide, you're playing a very dangerous game with somebody that wants to kill you.
Yep.
If you barricade, really what you're doing is denying them access to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not a protracted period of time. You're not doing this for 15 or 20. You're not holding off an army here.
Yeah.
You're holding off one person. This one person is motivated by locating a large group number of victims.
As quickly as they can.
They're going to, when they get frustrated, what we find is when they get frustrated, they moved on to where they believe the next concentrated group of victims are. And one of the trends that we're seeing now is that means an alternative site or alternative location.
Correct.
So we shouldn't always just assume it's going to be the one single location. If you can use creative means by which to deny them access to you, your survivability goes up tremendously.
Yep.
And all the more reason why, based on not only our personal experiences, but also on the case studies that we're looking at, the multiple subject matter experts in law enforcement throughout the nation. This is kind of an agreed upon thing that is far better to do. Mm-hmm. The 33 things, they say fight. I use confront. I use confront just because it works really well with the ABCs. You guys get it. I mean, with your backgrounds and your respective professions, I'm sure that you have acronyms that.
Yes, correct.
Mm-hmm. For me, it's so much easier if I just give you the ABCs and occasionally we put it on cards and somebody can put it there. It's easy to remember the ABCs. So we go with confront.
Yeah.
But the way that I explain this to people is that you have to find your internal motivation. Mm-hmm. This is the worst day possible. Correct. And you have to find what your internal motivation is and how hard you want to fight. Mm-hmm. And one of the examples that we talk about are Flight 93 on September 11th, that flight that ended up in the Pennsylvania cornfield. Mm-hmm. And that was absolutely an act of mass violence.
Yep.
But at some point, those people came to the realization that nobody's going to be there to help them. And this kind of takes me through the whole thing that we've been talking about at this point. They came to the realization that nobody was there to help them. And they had it within their own to make a difference. They had it within their own, maybe not necessarily save their own lives, but save the lives of thousands of other people. So in the words of Todd Beamer, let's roll.
Let's roll.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they found, the people on that flight that had that courage, they found what their motivation was.
Yeah.
And that motivation carried them to do a tremendously courageous act.
Heroic.
Absolutely.
Heroic. I mean, in all aspects.
For me, my motivation has always been my family and my children.
Correct.
Whether it's my day-to-day job or where I find myself in those circumstances, there is nothing that I will not do to go home to them at the end of the night.
Yeah.
I will go to great lengths to protect them and to protect others. And that is that is my motivation. But whenever I speak about this, it's not always that simple.
Mm-hmm.
And to kind of explain that, I've given this presentation a lot of times at healthcare facilities, and I've given it at schools. And I've had healthcare professionals say, you know what, I can't leave my patient. There's nobody there to protect them. I would cover my body or cover their body with mine in order to save their lives or in order to. Teachers are another example. If you ever happen to watch some of the coverage the Sandy Hook incident, there was an incredible teacher by the name of Caitlin Roig, and she was interviewed by Diane Sawyer. And she said, one of the people, the heroes, unsung heroes, is one of these administrators who was actually able to key the PA system, and effectively gave all these other teachers and staff within the building an advance notification. But Caitlin Roig believed that the shooter was coming into their room, and believed at any point in time this person was going to kill these young children. So she gathered them in a back room, and she turned the lights off. She closed the door, and she held them, and she kissed them, and she told them that she loved them, because she believed that at any point in time somebody was going to come in and kill them. And I've had teachers tell me that. Said, I love my students. I would give my life for my students. And a friend of mine, we were having this conversation, and it just so happened that her 10-year-old overheard this. And her 10-year-old approached her later and said, but Mom, what about me? What about us? If you did that, who would be there to protect us? Yeah. And so, as easy as it is for me to say, when it comes to confront, you got to find your motivation. Sometimes we have these mixed, orientations. I mean, you gentlemen are close friends. You work together. Were you to find yourself in the same building together, an event like this happens, and one of the two are so overwhelmed by the stress of the situation, which is something that we do see happen. Sure. That somebody's so frozen by the stress they can't move. And you come along to the other and you say, come on, we've got to go. Yeah. They won't move. And you can't drag them out. Where is your motivation? Where do your obligations lie? Do they lie with your family? Do they lie with your friend? So when it comes to avoid, barricade, confront, it does get a little bit more complicated.
Absolutely.
But I said that I would talk about the first part about the OODA loop. Is OODA an acronym that you gentlemen have heard before?
No, I have not. Explain that to us.
Highly recommend reading a book by John Robert Boyd. And John Robert Boyd was a Air Force pilot. He effectively wrote he wrote the primer for air combat operations. Okay. If you're going to be a fighter pilot, you're going to know John Robert Boyd.
Gotcha.
And he coined the acronym OODA. OODA is observe, orient, decide, and act. And the whole idea behind it is that if you are able to get into somebody else's OODA loop, okay, if you are able to get in and orient yourself to the situation faster than the other person, then you're going to move through the OODA loop faster to the decision-making and action phases. One of the great games that I use to illustrate this, and I don't know if perhaps you played it with your kids, the hand slap game, where you put your hands out here and the other person puts their hands there, and you have to feel or perceive when that threat is coming. Yep. So if I am able to make that observation, then orient myself to the attack, okay, I'm able to react and respond faster and start making decisions and act accordingly. So in the case of, I'm sitting at my desk, I've been working this place for 5 or 10 years. I have never heard, a large sharp crack, right? And suddenly I hear crack. It could be down the hall. It could be one way or another. The first part is orientation. I orient myself, okay? If I dismiss it and say, yeah, that's nothing. Yeah. And it is nothing. What's the risk? There isn't one. But if it is, I've missed that orientation time.
Correct.
If, on the other hand, I hear, and I haven't heard that crack in the 10 years that I've been working here, and I put my head up and I go, well, that's odd. And then I start looking and seeing, well, where are my avenues for escape, both traditional and non-traditional? What could I use? What are the ambient material out there that I could use to barricade myself in this location if I need to do so? How would I find? If I am properly oriented now, okay, I am moving through that OODA loop. I've made the observation. I'm orienting myself. Yeah. Now I start making decisions and I start acting. Okay? Excuse me. That's the recipe for winning.
Yeah.
An example I would give you in my life, a couple years ago, more than a few, I had taken my children to Disneyland, and happiest place on earth.
Yeah.
So we're at Disneyland, and we happened to be walking over by the Space Mountain, and some kids had gotten some fireworks into the park, and they're on an overpass, and they're lighting the fireworks off. They're tossing, and you hear this crack. Now I can't see this at the time, but I hear that, and I am properly oriented. So I grab the 5-year-old and I grab the 7-year-old and I take off running.
Yeah.
Now, do I look ridiculous and goofy? Yes, I do. And it's not the first time and it won't be the last.
Yeah.
And, forgive the pun with the goofy pun.
The goofy thing. Yeah.
Right.
But not the first, won't be the last.
Yep.
But given where we were, right?
Sure.
How often do you think that sort of thing happens there at that park?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Rarely, if ever.
Okay?
And so taking everything into context, by doing so, I am moving further down that path. Yep. So hopefully that was a long-winded response, Jim, but hopefully
not at all.
Better feel for what we will promote as our response strategies.
I mean, this is silly to say because you hear it all the time, but in all honesty, you if one person listens to this and learns from it and you can make a decision that saves yourself and a lot of other people, then again, it's success. So
it's success.
You take as long as you need to explain anything you want, and you're the expert at it, and you know. But and I know it's cliche to say that, right? If I save one person, but it's right. I mean, you could save not just one person, but that one person can save others because they went through this, they heard this. Wait a minute, what did Jeff say? And then boom, there you go. So absolutely, it was great.
Yeah, it is.
When we have people in our classes, we strongly encourage for them to go home and have these conversations with their family members. And you'll never know the life you saved.
Yeah, absolutely. I have more questions, but first I want to get to the classes in general.
Of course.
If we can, just right here in kind of the middle of all this.
Sure.
And we'll do it at the end as well. But how do they reach out to get to these classes or get a hold of you or any of that?
Certainly.
I think that's super important. This is super important.
Thank you. Our website is alifesaved.com. So
got it.
alifesaved, all one word, .com. If you get on there, you can either send us an email or you can, there's a form that'll fill out there. There's also an ebook. Phone numbers are on there to reach out to us. We have had clients anywhere. We've been in Florida. We've been in Palo Alto. We've been in New York. We've been in Washington, D.C. We've been completely all the way across the country, and certainly are happy to come out and present to any folks that have a need or interest. Our basic presentation lasts about 70 minutes. It's very, very scripted. We want to get a lot of information in. And then we generally leave the last 20 minutes. So it's an hour and a half presentation. The first 70 minutes is really presentation with 20 minutes left at the end because I am continuously blown away with the number of people that want to share the experiences that they've been involved in.
Sure.
And it's not always an active event. A number of times it is the prelude to an active event, and there was something that happened that prevented it from happening. A story had been shared with me about a school employee that was bringing a gun and keeping it in his locker. And I'm not talking about a teacher. I'm not talking about somebody in the school. I'm talking about somebody that was a part of the administrative staff. And this was such a deviation from their, again, baseline of behavior that somebody saw this. They brought it to the attention of what we refer to as a threat assessment group, which can be either an ad hoc or a sitting group. And they were able to intervene and really get this person the remediation that they needed to come back to a fully functioning person. So during the presentations, I get a lot of those anecdotal stories saying, this is what's happening. Sometimes people just they want to decompress. So anyhow, that's how to reach us.
Okay, good.
That's how to, and I'm always happy to respond. I also have resources that I have made, or connections that I've made throughout the years. Probably one of the best is I Love You Guys Foundation.
Okay.
And I feel completely comfortable putting that out there. All their materials, if you have schools, your children's schools, your grandchildren's schools, friends' schools, all their materials are free online.
Oh, wow.
And everything, soup to nuts, they give it, they put it out there. I don't want to steal their fire. If you have an interest, or anybody listening has an interest, go to their website, read their story. They're motivated by an event that happened that touched them personally, but they know this.
Yeah.
They know this intimately. They have people that have been there, not only as law enforcement, but actually in some cases as victims. Probably one of the most powerful speakers that they brought in that I had the chance to listen to is the gentleman that was principal at Columbine.
Wow.
And they offer these resources for free.
Wow.
And they've a number of schools have taken advantage of them. And their focus is primarily on schools.
Sure.
But I do understand that they do have material there that will be relevant to the corporate community.
We have a very good friend named Wayne Black. Don't know if you know him or not. Don't know him. But he's written a book called School Insecurities, and he's a securities expert. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. Or
I listen to podcasts.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right. So, hey, thank you. but anyways, you two are, I don't know. I mean, it's just like, it seems like the message and the motive and the tone and you know, your presence is kind of one and the same, and it's refreshing and nice. So
thank you.
I kind of wish I lived near you guys.
Yeah,
I would feel very protected, you know, because I might not be the one to react very quickly to the OODA thing. So, you know,
I'm thinking I'm going to have to bail on Jim.
Yeah.
That situation.
As we're fighting for each other, you know, get out of the way. Yeah.
So,
that's
is
one of the
crazy.
Lists that you make in life, friends that I would fight for and friends I'm leaving behind, right?
Yeah, that's right. So,
it's kind of a good list.
Yeah.
Now, it's kind of funny because we joke about this, but if it was a situation where my family was around us, they would probably save Dale and leave me there.
It's sad. It's not untrue, but maybe true. I don't know. Maybe there's a little truth to that. So, we had talked a little. You kind of went through some of this already, but you know, how to actually prevent one from actually happening in the first place. I don't know that you ever can. So it's not a situation that's like, okay, this is foolproof. We're always going to be able to stop one. But are there any other ways to kind of prevent this from happening? And I know it's kind of the whole see something, say something, almost like the situation where the administrator was bringing the gun into school and those kind of signs. And most of us kind of live our lives through, I get up, I go to work, I come home, I eat dinner, I go to bed, I get up, you're in this mundane kind of routine, and you're not really, you know, seeing out of your peripheral vision everything that's going on. Yeah. So are there other ways to kind of prevent something like that from happening, or that you can tell us or think of?
Certainly. So when you see this behavior, and again, I've said it multiple times, when you see those behaviors and it's a deviation from the baseline behavior, it's not only see something, say something, but it's stay involved and persist.
Okay.
Because so often what happens is somebody will say it once and they feel like their obligation has been done. And when the behavior happens again, they're like, look, I got involved last time, I said something, I did something, and nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
You got to persist. Right? These things don't always just happen in a very compressed period of time. More often than not, this has been something that has been growing over time to eventually the point where, as I described, that it begins to leak out or manifest itself as external behavior. So how do you...
that's all right.
I apologize, gentlemen. That is...
That's okay.
That was my... I thought I had turned that off.
Don't worry about that. Yeah, that's Jim's dog will bark. There'll be all sorts of
there's a lot of things that happen, so don't worry.
If you may have noticed or may not, it's not exactly the most professional setting. But
well, I'm a professional presenter, and I always before I have a routine. One of the things that I do is turn the phone off, set it aside. But my wife is waiting for a huge jury. They're waiting for a jury to come back. So
okay.
And I had her on. But to finish the thought, it is get involved and persist. I had mentioned to you previously, at least in the work environment, larger organizations have a threat assessment group. Call it a tag. Here in this area, I wouldn't be surprised if in your respective jurisdictions they have an organization called the Association of Threat Assessment Professionals. Okay. There's an aerospace industry or an aerospace company here in the area, heavily involved in this. And one of the things that we talk about in that is a sitting group within the organization that's responsible for vetting these threats. So if, I had a coworker or I had a subordinate that I saw was behaving in this type manner, that information would go to this group. This group could be comprised, depending whether it's a standing group or an ad hoc group, it could be comprised of human resources, legal, the immediate supervisor. It could be comprised of fellow colleagues. It could be comprised of the safety officer, security. It could also involve law enforcement if it's risen to the level where it has become a crime or a serious threat. Mm-hmm. And then really what they sit down is they look at it and they decide, hey, how is it we're going to deal with this? And sometimes it's something as simple as an employee assistance program, reference to an employee assistance program. Sometimes it could be on the far end, termination. Yeah. And then we're talking about, denying access after the fact. But that's one way of dealing with it. But if there is no reporting, if there is no persist, then it goes unchecked. Yeah. There has to be some way, shape, or form of intervention. I can tell you, at least in law enforcement, it has reached a point where it hasn't reached a crime, but the behavior is threatening enough. One of the things that we advocate for is an intervention to go in and say, this is what people have seen. Mm-hmm. This is how your behavior is being interpreted. And a couple different occasions, people are like, whoa, I'm sorry. I'm not doing that at all. I'm sorry that it's come across that way. I'm not considering acting on it. And big believers of that. Big believers of bringing it out, putting it right there on the table. Light is the best disinfectant type thing. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. Very good. Thank you. Yeah. Jim, you got anything?
One of the, just real quick, because I know we appreciate your time. But so when we were talking about school shootings, a lot of people sit there and say, man, arm the teachers, do this, do that. Because some of us, that's the easy fix, right? That's easy. Now with a active shooter situation in public, we saw a situation in Texas where there was an individual who had the training, pulled out his gun, and was able to shoot the. That's, for those of us, I think the more people that are armed, the less this would happen. Mm-hmm. Okay, from your standpoint, is that a very good thing to think about, or is it?
You know what? So let's talk about that. First of all, the number of, the term is good guys with guns. Yes. The number of events that have been stopped is woefully unreported.
Oh, completely.
And every time I give this class, there's always somebody, and particularly given where I am, rather than raising their hand going, oh, they kind of sidle up to me after the class and they look over the left and look over the right, and then they whisper, do you think I should get a gun? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And because I've had this question multiple times and been able to form a response that I think is a common sense, it boils down to three things. Okay, the first of which is do you have the means by which to store it? And I don't mean just in your home, because in your home, I also mean in your car. But the number one firearm that you used against law enforcement, the number one that used in crimes, is generally one that is stolen either in a burglary or a car crawl. Mm-hmm. Concealed weapons carriers, there are places where you cannot carry a firearm. You can't carry it in a sports team. You can't carry it in a federal building. You can't carry it into a bar. So do you have the means by which to store it and secure it in your vehicle if you're going to be an armed carrier? Do you have the means by which to do so in your home? Because there are, it's not only, one of the things when I used to have play dates where children would come into my home, I would let the other parents know, look, I'm a responsible gun owner. My firearms are secured. Your children will not have access and will not see any of the firearms. Yep. If you can answer yes to that question, let's move on to question number 2. Question number 2 is are you going to train with it? Okay. And to be able to perform at a high level, it's difficult for me to say, but the agency that I work for gets very little firearms training. We perhaps might get 8 hours over an annual basis.
Wow.
And in a stressful situation, being expected to perform to a relatively high level, you just can't do that on the basis of 8 hours. You have to put the time, the work, and the effort into it.
Right.
But we know a lot of people who purchase a firearm, and they'll put it, it gives them a sense of security, and they will put it in the lockbox, and it will gain dust, and they will not practice with it.
Yep.
So are you willing to be able to not only practice on a static line situation, but are you willing to practice under stressors with moving targets and such? And I'm not saying that you have to go out and become an M6 shooter. I'm not saying anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm saying don't let it be the very first time that you produce the firearm. I don't let that situation be the very first time that you've had that firearm in your hand.
Correct.
And then if you can answer yes to that question, the third of the 3 is, and this is the one that seems to, be probably the most difficult for people, is can you look at another human being and take a life?
Yep.
And there was an example of an event that occurred here locally where a person went into a shopping mall and began shooting people. And the good guy with the gun produced the firearm, and rather than taking advantage of the opportunities or the advantage of surprise, verbally challenged the person. And the person immediately turned around and shot them, and the good guy in the gun sits in a chair now.
Wow.
Can you be properly oriented, understand the advantage that having a concealed firearm provides you, and then look at this other human being and pull the trigger? If you've read the book by Colonel Dave Grossman on killing, a lot of people don't realize that during previous wars, a lot of our soldiers, because of the intrinsic human nature not to take another life, were actually shooting above and shooting beyond and not shooting at the targets. One of the reasons that we, for those that are involved in regular firearms training, shoot at silhouettes is to get people to accustomed to shooting at a human-shaped target.
Yeah.
For those that are old enough to remember Nintendo and Duck Hunt.
Yes. Yeah.
Duck Hunt, which you may not necessarily know, was originally a firearms training tool.
Wow.
To get soldiers firing at silhouettes. Okay. Firing at human figures.
Right. Yeah.
So to answer your question, Jim, one of which is, do you have the means to store it? Secondly, are you going to train with it? And third, can you take another human life? If you can't answer all 3 of those questions, yes, then I would say no, because you become a liability. Something I'll share with both of you, and that is I'll pose the question: of the confrontations that law enforcement officers are involved with, how many of them are armed confrontations?
Percentage, you like percentage wise? Yeah. Armed, I'd have to say a low number, 1%, maybe. That's
low.
what
maybe 10-15%, something like that. I would think low.
What if I told you it was 100%?
Oh geez.
Yeah,
because the law enforcement officer brings their gun into the fight.
Oh, well, that's true.
See, that was a trick question.
That's true. That was a trick question. He's smarter than us.
I've done this before.
That's why he's doing the talking, Jim.
That's right.
He's smarter than us, obviously, clearly.
But look at it this way: the vast majority of law enforcement officers are killed with their own firearm. It's taken away from them.
Wow.
I'll tell you something a lot of people don't know, that when we go out and we search for body armor the officers wear, it generally is selected because it will stop the rounds that the law enforcement officer carries.
Oh, wow.
So if you are a concealed carry person,
yeah,
you need to apply that same logic. Okay. If you're not willing to train, if you're not willing to be able to take a life in the appropriate circumstances, then you're introducing a firearm into a situation that it could be used against you.
It's a good point. That's a very good point.
So, yeah. Incredibly.
And police officers are trained, and they sometimes still lose their firearm too.
And they still lose their firearms.
Yep. Yeah. Wow. And you like to think in the thought process is if it's my life or my family's life and somebody else, that I clearly could pull that trigger. But until you're in a situation like that, you don't know. And I don't, for most people, for most, I would say people, you just don't know what that will happen in that situation. And if you're not trained, and especially if you're talking about maybe a moving target, I mean, the odds of hitting it, slim to none at that point, really. If you have no training, you're just sitting there, kind of willy-nilly, pulling the trigger on a 9mm or something. It's your odds are it's not going to happen without the training. So, listen, I could go on for hours and hours and hours. I'm telling you, this has been extremely enjoyable and an honor for us to have you on here to tell us all of this information, your background, your history, the knowledge that you bring with you is incredible, and would love to have you back on. To continue the conversation, or, unfortunately, let's be honest, there's going to be more active shooters and more active shooter situations. And they're, like you said, the similarities, the signs, though, their motives, whatever is often, they line up, with each other. It's just, it's bizarre to me. Again, people can reach you by going to alifesaved.com, correct?
Yes.
That's the website. They can reach out to you.
They can.
And at that point, can I ask you, do you go to those locations for the training? Are they virtual, or are they
we do both options? We do both. We offer a number of different services. One of the reasons that often the clients will ask us to come out is that they will ask us to do a site survey.
Yeah.
Which allows us to kind of to walk around and give them some very basic things that they can do to create a hard target or harden up their location. So yes, on both occasions, or on both circumstances, yes, we do provide remote training. Yes, we do also provide on-site.
Yeah. Wouldn't the simple, here I am, I'm just going to ask more questions, but no, wouldn't the simple, isn't the simple answer to a lot of these situations are secure doors, maybe armed security or police officers at locations. We talk a lot about school resource officers and things like that. I mean, we know from the Nashville shooter that this person went to a school first that was secure, went to the next one that wasn't. So is this not, for me, it feels like common sense answers to me.
Yes, but I can tell you with my clients, and it's not only been schools, but also been corporate.
Yes.
They're trying to balance between creating an environment that is overly secure and one that is welcoming to their vendors, to their customers, whether it's retail or otherwise. They don't want to create that impression that this is Fort Knox. They want you to feel welcome.
Of course.
We have a very large online retailer here, and I've presented for them, and they have put a lot of time and effort into making sure that their security services are subdued, because they don't want to give that impression. So yes, it should, but it should be done right. It should be done in a way that it's not overly oppressive. It should be done in a way that it still creates a welcoming environment. I don't want a guy with an M4 standing in front of my door, my child's school. That
gives you another perception and concern, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like bars on a window at a place I'm going to or something. I'm like, well, this place, I might not be the best place, right? Or something like that. It's true.
Yes.
And by the way, that online realtor, I believe, is moving to my state.
Oh, really?
I think he's moving homes, not the business, but the homes. And so,
right. I heard that.
Yeah, we're full down here. We don't. We're closed. Go home. So, Jeff, listen again. Thank you so much. Thank you for your service in law enforcement, your knowledge, and sharing that with our viewers and our audience. Super valuable, folks. Go out there at alifesave.com. Get a hold of Jeff. They'll reach back out to you and they'll help you out any way you can.
Absolutely.
And from both of us, this has been phenomenal. A great hour spent, and we look forward to the next time you come back, if you will.
Absolutely. And Jim and Dale, thank you so much for helping me get the message out.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. At least we can do.
Definitely, Dale said it, but thank you for your service. Thank you for what you do, and all the law enforcement officers like you. We're very supportive of them, and we'll do whatever we can to help because you. Like I said, every guest we have on this show, we like to say we're a little bit better for knowing them. And you're one of those individuals that we're better for knowing you. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we better let Jeff go and attend to his wife and that phone call. Happy wife.
I hope it's good news.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope so too.
Just blame Dale.
Yeah, just blame me. Blame me. I'm long-winded too. Jeff, again, thank you to you and your family. Happy Thanksgiving, and be safe during the holiday seasons. Of course, be safe always out there. And thank you for all you do. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
Bye. Good night, gentlemen.
Good night. Well, thank you to Jeff again for coming on. Really a good person. Just a good, the type of person you need in a position like that, and so many more are like him out there. But he is just a tremendous individual. Yeah. So,
and there was some things he shared with us that off recording that, and we're not going to share it, but it's just to go show you who this individual is.
Yeah.
Him and his wife, they're amazing people. Yeah. And we, and I think we've met enough amazing people that we can judge. From when we talk to them a little bit and their passion.
Yep.
Because the passion, I mean, that's what you got to look at. Law enforcement, protecting people. That's what the passion is about, Jeff. And it's in making people safe because, we talk about it, we talked about it in the show. It's it's corny because everybody always says it. But if you can save one person.
Yep.
And it's true.
It's true.
If you are that one person that
you could be that one person.
Yeah.
You know, you could be that one person. I love the fact that he does the training and goes to corporations and, we'll do it remotely or do it in person, but really an hour and a half total between that and stories and questions at the end of the presentation. Go to alifesave.com. That's where you can learn all about it. And if your corporation or your hospital or your school or any, whatever business, if you want to know how to protect yourself and what you should do in situations like that, everybody it happens to doesn't think they're going to be in a situation like that. We hear it all the time. Not in this town, not in this small town. Didn't think in this community. Would have never guessed it would have happened at this store. You hear about it all the time. So you don't know. And it happens daily almost, so much doesn't get reported on it, but go to alifesave.com, look it up, look Jeff up. He is more than happy to help in this situation and is experienced enough to know what the hell to do. So,
awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. So thank you again, Jeff, for coming on. Again, we said, Jim, great people. Just how much better you and I are with every person we keep meeting on this show. I mean, that's who'd have thought, right?
We bring them down. But they bring us up, and that's all that matters.
Of course, they're probably thinking, "Boy, I was better before I did that show."
But we know we just get better and better.
We do, and more informed, and a lot of times more frightened. I know. We've lost a lot of sleep doing this show. Yeah, I'm telling you. It's insane.
How to get it and spread it, folks. Just we cannot stress this enough, and I can't. For those of you who are on our Facebook pages, on the different pages that we're in, share it.
Yes.
Share. And we're okay. It's not okay. You may say it's self-promotion. Well, maybe a little bit it is self-promotion, but these interviews that we're talking about with these, the archers from last week, just phenomenal people who are trying to just get a message out where not everybody is hearing. So I can't stress this enough. And even if you're friends of ours or no friends of ours that aren't our way of thinking politically,
please share it with them. Yes,
share
please.
It. Just all you got to do is click share.
Yeah, that's it. And then you just send it. That's all you got to do. It's that easy. And so we need your help out there to get these messages across to people who aren't necessarily listening or able to listen, or fast forward through our bullcrap. I don't care. Just listen to these people and listen to what they have to say. And then if you have some way or want to dispute what they have to say, bring us facts. We're happy to discuss them.
Not insults.
Facts. Because if you have facts like these people have facts, I'm more than willing to listen. Yeah. But if you're just going to say, both. You can. Yeah,
we have facts, but we're going to insult you. That's just
that's true too. That's just who we are. But I mean, anyways,
but we have facts.
Yeah.
The thing is, we have facts.
Yeah, we have facts, and that's the important part. So, folks, listen. Thank you again. Another brilliant week. We will be back on Tuesday. Stay tuned for that. In our interview with JJ Carroll, we'll tell you all about that. But if you want to know all about the border and what really happens down there and the numbers, the true numbers you aren't hearing on the media, that's the episode to listen to, folks, because he knows as a lifetime border agent, senior border agent. So
you will lose sleep.
You will lose sleep. Yeah, because Jim and I are. That's for sure. Jim, anything else to add before we end this? Folks, thank you again for your support. Like, follow, share on Rumble. Share is the important part, honestly. Go to our Facebook page, 2 Guys 1 Coup podcast. You can find it on Facebook. Just look it up. Join. More than happy to have you there. You can add things. You join the conversation. You can put things, not just to hear our podcast. It's for anybody. So go there.
And if you want to, if you're afraid to say something by putting it out there, then instant message us.
Yeah, you can message us.
Whatever. I mean, we'll give us something. We'll look it up. And it's okay. We were wrong.
Yeah.
Or the reporting that we did, maybe we're not 100% perfect. We do get our stories from our trusted news sources.
Yeah.
And we have done MSNBC and CNN before. We've done stories on them too. So we give equal sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes equal. But of course, we make
anyway.
Fun of those stories.
Yeah. So, but especially with these guests, we want to support them as much as we can because
we have to.
They know their stuff.
Yeah, we have to. And I also want to thank personally this week Angela, Douglas, and Juan. They'll know why, but we want to thank them for their support and comments and everything else. That's important, and we love them. Keep them coming. Again, that's all I got today, Jim. Until we see each other again, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the 2 Guys 1 Coup podcast with Dale and Jim. Remember, you can watch on YouTube and Rumble and listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you like what you hear, go ahead and give us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it, and it helps others find us when searching for podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and TikTok. Just search for 2 Guys 1 Coup. That's the number 2 Guys and the number 1 Coup, COUP. Thanks again for listening to the 2 Guys 1 Coup podcast, and God bless the United States of America.